Good afternoon. My name is Jose Araujo. I'm the president for the Board of Elections for the year 2014. Can I please have the commissioners starting from my left introduce themselves?
Michael Andino, Bronx County Republican Commissioner.
Ron Castorina, Richmond County Republican. Good afternoon.
Simon Shimon, Kings Republican.
Frederick Humane, Manhattan Republican.
Michael Michaud, Queens Republican.
Colin Shulkin, Democratic, Manhattan.
John Plateau, Brooklyn, Democrat.
Bianca Perez, Bronx Democrat.
Marie Guastella, Richmond Democrat.
Michael Ryan, Executive Director.
Juan Santos, Deputy Executive Director.
Matt Graves, candidate Region.
Nina M. Crispino, Director of Personnel.
Kenneth Malton, Council.
Stephen Langford, Council. Steve Richmond, General Counsel.
And just for the record, on behalf of the commission, I'd like to welcome the new commissioners from Manhattan, Bronx, and Kings County. Welcome. We look forward to working with you guys. And it's also my understanding that there is an application going to be made by Commissioner Shulkin.
Correct. I want to make a motion to accept Alvin Samuels, the Manhattan Democrat, will be acting deputy chief for the borough of Manhattan until further notice. Mr. Samuels will be receiving the deputy chief clerk outgoing salary, effective Sunday, September 21st.
Is there a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carries. All right, with that, let's... Pursuant to the provisions of Title II of Article 9 of the New York State Election Law, specifically Sections 9-204, 9-210, and 9-212, I now call the meeting of the Board of Canvassers in the City of New York to order for the purposes of certifying the recanvass of votes cast on September 9th, 2014 in the primary elections held for the state and local office and party positions within the City of New York. I would now ask that each commissioner and staff member present identify him or herself for the record.
Ron Castorina, Richmond County Republican.
Michael Andino, Bronx County Republican.
Simon Shimon, Kings Republican.
Frederick Humane, Manhattan Republican.
Michael Michaud, Queens Republican.
Jose Araujo, Queens Democrat.
Colin Shulkin, Manhattan Democrat.
John Plateau, Kings, Democrat.
Bianca Perez, Bronx Democrat.
Marie Guastella, Richmond Democrat.
To serve as a Democratic member of the Canvassing Board, I hereby designate the Democratic Commissioner for the respective counties and Commissioner Guastella to serve with me for Queens County on any multi-county recaps. I would ask the Secretary Michael Michel to designate the Republican Commissioner for the respective counties and another Republican Commissioner to serve with him for Queens County and any multi-county recaps.
I appoint Freddie Humane to serve with me.
Bronx County, I like to call it the Bronx County. It's my understanding that the deputy chief clerks of the Bronx and their staff have prepared and signed the returns of canvass for the September 9th, 2014 primary elections for state and local office and party positions conducted in the Bronx County, except for the 86th Assembly District Democratic primary for member of the Assembly and the 79th Assembly District Democratic primary for male district leader, both of which require full manual recanvasses in accordance with the board's policies and procedures. I will now ask for the record a series of questions with respect to the returns of canvass that have been presented by the Bronx staff. Do the Bronx deputy chief clerks confirm, or their parties here, confirm that the results presented are accurate and correct?
Yes.
Michael Serrati, Administrative Associate, Republican.
Lizette Pohl, Administrative Associate Democrat.
Do you confirm?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Are there any unresolved discrepancies to report to the board?
No.
No.
Has the audit of voter verifiable audit records for both the poll site and central count scanners required by Section 9 211 of the New York State election law been successfully completed for these contests?
Yes.
Based on that report, I would entertain a motion that the Board of Canvassers certify the returns of canvass submitted for the September 9th, 2014 primary elections for state and local office and party positions conducted in the Bronx. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carries. The returns of canvass prepared and submitted by the Bronx staff of the Board of Elections are adopted unanimously. On
Thank you,
behalf of the
guys.
Commissioners, please thank your staff for the hard work.
Thank you.
Can I have Kings County step up, please? Can you please identify yourselves for the record?
Betty Ann Canizio, Deputy Chief.
Sal Barrera, Administrative Associate, Republican.
It's my understanding that the chief clerk or their representatives and their staff have prepared and signed the returns of canvass for the September 9th, 2014 primary elections for state and local office and party positions conducted in Kings County. I would ask that they present the canvassing board, present them to the canvassing board for their review and inspection and approval. I will now ask for the record a series of questions with respect to the returns of canvass that have been presented by the Brooklyn staff. Do the Brooklyn chief or deputy chief clerk or their acting representatives here confirm that the results presented are accurate and correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any unresolved discrepancies to report to the board?
No.
No.
Has the audit of voter verifiable audit records for both the poll site and the central count scanners required by section 9 to 11 of the New York State election law been successfully completed?
Yes.
Yes.
Based on that report, I would entertain a motion that the Board of Canvassers certify the returns of canvass for the September 9th, 2014 primary elections for the state and local office and party positions conducted in Kings County. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carries. The returns of canvass prepared and submitted by the Brooklyn staff of the Board of Elections are adopted unanimously. Please congratulate the staff on behalf of the commissioners for their hard work.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the honor.
Can I have New York County step up, please?
Gregory Lehman, Chief Clerk.
Alvin Sanders, acting deputy chief.
Can you place names on the record?
We just did.
It's my understanding that the chief clerk and deputy chief clerk of Manhattan and their staff have prepared and signed the returns of canvass for the September 9th, 2014 primary election for the state and local office and party positions conducted in New York County. I would ask that they present them. They have been presented. I will now ask for the record a series of questions with respect to the returns of canvass that have been presented by the Manhattan staff. Do the Manhattan chief clerk and deputy chief clerk confirm that the results presented are accurate and correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any unresolved discrepancies to report to the board?
No, sir.
Has the audit of voter verifiable audit records for both the poll site and the central count scanners required by section 9 to 11 of the New York State election law have been successfully completed?
Yes.
Based on that report, I would entertain a motion that the Board of Canvassers certify the return of canvass for the September 9th, 2014 primary elections for state and local offices and party positions conducted in New York County.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries. The returns of canvass prepared and submitted by the Manhattan staff and the Board of Elections are adopted unanimously. Please, on behalf of the commissioners, thank your staff for their hard work. All right, now for the best county in my position.
Kings.
And I said Queens.
Oh, I thought it was Kings.
Without Queens, they can't be kings. It's my understanding that the chief clerk and the deputy chief clerk of Queens and their staff have prepared and signed the returns of canvass for September 9th, 2014 primary elections for the state and local office and party positions conducted in Queens County. I would ask that they present them to the canvassing board for review and approval. I will now ask for the record a series of questions with respect to the returns of canvass that have been presented by the Queens staff. Do the Queens chief clerk and deputy chief clerk or their acting representatives confirm that the results presented are accurate and correct?
Yes.
Are there any unresolved discrepancies to report to the board?
No.
Has the audit of voter verifiable audit records for both the poll site and central count scanners required by section 9-2-11 of the New York State election law been successfully completed?
Yes.
Based on that report, I would entertain a motion, I would move that the Board of Canvassers certify the return of canvass for the September 9, 2014 primary elections, state and local office and party positions conducted in Queens County. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion carries. The return of canvass prepared and submitted by the Queens staff of the Board of Elections are adopted unanimously. Please, on behalf of the commissioners, thank the staff for their hard work.
Will do. Thank you.
Can I have Richmond County step up, please? Now for the jewel of the city.
That's correct. And thank you for recognizing that, President.
It's been beaten into me. It's my understanding that the Chief Clerk and Deputy Chief Clerk of Richmond and their staff have prepared and signed the returns of canvass for September 9, 2014 primary elections for state and local offices conducted in Richmond County. I would ask that they present them to the Canvassing Board for their review. Kind of like that, right?
Efficient.
Different color for you.
Yeah. I will now ask for the record to see if there are questions with respect to the return of canvass that has been presented by the Staten Island office. Do the Staten Island Chief and Deputy Chief Clerk confirm that the results presented are accurate and correct?
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Are there any unresolved discrepancies to report to the board?
None.
Down.
Has the audit of voter verifiable audit records for both the poll site and the central account scanners required by section 92-11 of the New York State election law been successfully completed?
Yes, they have.
Yes.
All right, based on that report, I would entertain a motion that the Board of Canvassers certify the returns of canvass for the September 9, 2014 primary elections for state and local offices conducted in Richmond County.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carries. The return of canvass prepared and submitted by the by Staten Island staff and the Board of Elections are adopted unanimously. Please thank your staff on behalf of the commissions for their hard work and dedication.
Thank you.
Before you step away, you both identify yourself for the record.
Sure. Anthony Andrulli, Deputy Chief Clerk, Staten Island.
Lisa Sadie, Administrative Associate, Staten Island.
Thank you.
Can I just have Queen step up? This is my understanding that you pick up your identification.
Mark Hagerty, Deputy Chief Clerk. Robert Pataki, Administrative Associate.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve and adopt the recap statements and return of canvass for the September 9th, 2014 primary elections for those state and local offices and party positions which cross county boundaries within the city of New York?
Yes, on the
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain? The motion carried. The motion is adopted and the recap statements and returns of canvass for the September 9th, 2014 primary elections of the state and local offices and party positions which cross county lines within the city of New York are approved. Is there a motion to authorize the use of commissioners' signature stamps as appropriate in each statement and return of canvass?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed or
Aye.
abstain? The motion is adopted. There being no further business to come before the Board of Canvassers in the City of New York, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Board of Canvassers and to convene the weekly stated meeting of the Commissioners of the Election of the City of New York.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Made and seconded, all in favor? Anybody opposed or abstained? The motion is adopted. The Board of Canvassers stand adjourned. Thank you.
What's happening in the Bronx? No, I have one. Mr. President, should we just get a brief report about what's going on in the Bronx, just for the record?
Sure, but I think we just have to reconvene the meeting, the general meeting. Yeah. All right. So at this point, we're reconvening the regular scheduled commissioners meeting. Can I have the commissioners starting from my left introduce themselves?
Ron Castorina, Richmond County Republican.
Michael Rendino, Bronx County Republican.
Simon Schumann, Kings Republic.
Frederick Humane, Manhattan Republican.
Mike Michelle, Queens Republican.
Jose Roger, Queens Democrat.
Alan Sullivan, Manhattan Democrat. John Plateau, Kings County Democrat.
Bianca Perez, Bronx Democrat.
Marie Costello, Richmond Democrat.
Michael Ryan, Executive Director.
Joan Santel, Deputy Executive Director.
Pamela Perkins, Administrative Director.
Matt Graves, candidate registered.
Nina Crispino, Director of Personnel.
Kenneth Moulton, Council of Commissioners.
Stephen Dankberg, Council of the Commissioners. Steve Richmond, General Counsel.
And there was a, Commissioner, you had a...
Yeah, I just had a brief question, if we could get an update as to where we stand with the Bronx contested matter.
Mr. President, with your permission, Mr. Savino is actually still in the Bronx. The manual recanvass in the 86th Assembly District commenced yesterday morning. There are two sets of teams going through each of the individualized ballots. As of last night when they ended, they had finished a little more than a third. The aim is to try to complete this, if possible, tomorrow or Thursday at the latest, and then the court proceeding. There is a challenge relating to 42 absentee ballots, which were preserved under King v. Smith. They've been counted already. At the end of the initial count, I should say that Hector Ramirez was ahead by 6 votes. So therefore, under our rules, manual recanvass was required to be conducted. The Bronx staff, we had a court appearance on Thursday. The court understood what the requirements of our regulations are, and therefore they put off the court proceeding until we complete the count with the consent of both parties. Both parties are cooperating with the board. The allegation is that these 42 or 43 absentee ballots were either obtained through forgery or other improper means, and or that the voters were not aware that the votes were cast on their behalf. For those commissioners who were here at that time, this is similar to the allegations that came up in Fiddler Strobin. So they're scheduling a court hearing, has a control date for Monday at, I believe, 10 a.m. The intention is to call witnesses, including the voters and or the persons who obtained the ballots on their behalf, and that's a matter appropriate for the court. The board cannot rule on allegations of fraud or forgery. That's the province of the New York State Supreme Court. So that's where we're going. The Bronx staff spent Friday and Saturday based on our project getting all the materials together. As you know, the ballots had to be taken out of the secure ballot bin, and they are commingled with the whole poll site. They had to be separated by ED. Some EDs did not belong to the 86, so those were segregated out, and they are not being counted, and those are being preserved. And we're now doing it ED by ED, and as I said, approximately a third of the ballots have been reviewed, and there are only 1 or 2 issues relating to whether or not something constituted an extraneous mark on the paper ballot canvas. So going forward, and there were a couple of ballots which probably were not read by the scanner because I was told that they voted did circle the names as opposed to filling the ovals. So moving forward, we hope to complete the manual recanvass, as we said, sometime this week, and that the court proceeding will then go forward. We advise the court of the military ballot deadline of next Friday, the 3rd, and the court's mindful of that, and they promise the next conditions hearing. With respect to the second canvass that's going to have to be conducted for the male district leader in the 79th Assembly District, time is not as of the essence since there is the meeting of the executive committee was held on last week, so the count will go forward with certified that. I believe there it's a 9-vote difference. But it's the time is not as pressing because that office, the winner of that office will not appear on the November election ballot. And finally, with respect to the subpoena that was served, a modification was made. The district attorney has received copies of the absentee ballot envelopes that they requested, as well as copies of the absentee ballot applications and any ID provided by the board. At this time, that satisfied them until the judicial proceeding is concluded, at which time they said they may want the originals of the absentee ballot applications as soon as the Supreme Court has concluded that business.
Now, Mr. Richmond, you and I had a conversation yesterday. I just want to clarify. It was my understanding yesterday that in the event that staff did not complete what was necessary to be completed by close of business tomorrow, that owing to the holidays and the unavailability of council, that might have to go, just for clarification, might have to go into the weekend, that we would suspend work on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, Mr. Savino is having discussions with councils for both candidates to see if alternative representatives who will not be observing the holiday will be available to continue the canvass.
Okay, so that was a little change.
Those discussions have not been finalized. I think part of it depends how it goes forward. As I said, there have been only relatively few objections made with respect to the actual content of the ballot. The hard part, fighting over whether you open the envelope or not, has been done. So there's maybe some hope that if the councils have to observe the holiday, they can have alternative representation present, and they can include that because, again, everyone is mindful of the time deadlines, and they do not want to we want to have there's a conference call scheduled with the Bronx Supreme Court tomorrow afternoon, hopefully between 1 and 2 to give the court an update so that they'll be able to go forward, because the court will not be available either on Thursday or Friday to conduct the hearing, so we have some time, but in the worst case scenario, we may have to go into next Saturday and complete it on Saturday.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
If we're open, why are we doing that? If we're opening the Board of Elections open, why are we not counting? Are we making accommodations just for 2 specific areas?
Well, it happens that the 2 lawyers, one for each party, happen to be of the same religious affiliation, and they have been present as the observers. If
They weren't present when I was there yesterday.
or they're available to be present, and so if they cannot agree on alternate. In any event, that was the discussion that was had with the representatives, and apparently they've agreed to try to.
I think, Commissioner, if we try to force the issue.
Finish tomorrow.
They may, that's the hope. The hope was to do it.
It's going to be finished
The hope was
tomorrow.
to do it before the conference call, so we could have a final number to provide to the court before they observe 2. But in terms of a legal status, I think we would be facing the ground if they went to court to ask for the order to suspend it to allow the religious observance, especially since the court itself has advised that they're going to be observing the holiday as well. But I'm hoping, again,
We'll see what happens tomorrow. How's that
Well,
sound?
hopefully today we'll have a better
We'll make that
idea.
decision
Yes.
tomorrow. We'll see where we're at.
Is there a motion with respect to the minutes? Has everyone had an opportunity to read them?
I'll move to adopt.
Is there a second? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstain?
We're abstaining.
Abstention.
The 3 new commissioners are abstaining as they were not here last week.
Those are the minutes for the record, 9/16.
Motion carries. Can we have Mike Ryan give us an update on the ballot layout?
Actually, Mr. Sadi, we just want to discuss briefly the scheduling issues that we discussed in my office yesterday, and perhaps when we'll be available to present a final ballot and some of the difficulties that we have in doing that.
The 2 difficulties that I could think of right now are we're still waiting for the state certification of candidates. The latest.
Can you just say which categories of candidates those are?
Oh, sure. That's governor and lieutenant governor, state controller, attorney general, and any crossover state senate candidates that may be. I think that's the 34th, and that crosses into the Bronx.
And obviously, all of those contests would affect the entire ballot,
Exactly.
every ballot that we have to
Crossover congressional. And there's crossover congressional districts as well, but as Mr. Ryan pointed out, the gubernatorial candidates, the statewide candidates, would affect every ballot in the city. So we're waiting for that. The latest it would be transmitted to us, the latest it is required to be transmitted to us is Monday, the 29th. As soon as we receive it, it will be inputted into our system, and we'll start to begin to be able to create samples. I expect to have something to bring to the commissioner's attention at Tuesday's meeting.
Commissioner Flato?
Mr. President, I believe it is Judge McGrath recently ruled in Albany Supreme Court that language on Proposition 1 as previously crafted by the State Attorney General is out of order, and that Proposition 1 language has to be rewritten. Will that have any impact on our ability to get our ballots up and printed and out in a timely manner, or that's already been taken care of?
It does not appear that it'll affect it. We were given the updated language from the state board. We were given it in only English, though. The state gets all of the propositions translated into all of the languages that were required as well. We have not received that yet. So if that by some chance were to run into next week, which I wouldn't expect it to be, then that would affect.
And for the edification of everyone, but especially the new commissioners, once the state has the language finalized in English, that they then provide to us the translations. We also then have an opportunity to have our translators review it and make sure that they agree. In addition, the practice has been fairly recently, but across the board, they send some interested language groups are also on the email, so it's sent not only to us but to others as well, and then hopefully in that collaborative process, everyone weighs in, and that the interpretations and the translations, I should say, are something that's acceptable. My understanding has been, since I've been here, that the more symbolic languages, i.e. Chinese and Korean, there is usually quite a bit of conversation that goes back and forth with respect to the accepted translations of it. So there is a collaborative process that leads to that. But in terms of the actual building of the ballot, the propositions are typically on the reverse side.
That's right.
So we could still build the electronic file of the front side of the ballot while that's waiting, and then simply plug that in onto the back once that's done.
There is one more thing. Pardon me, Commissioner.
Second question, since we're talking about the flip side issue again, there have been some concerns, I've only heard it anecdotally, coming from voters that we have clear language on the front side that lets the voter know that there are additional items on the back side of that ballot that they can and should vote on. Will there be clear language on side one that makes it clear to the voters of New York that there are additional items to vote on that flip side of the ballot?
Right. Mr. Richmond, I believe that you have articulated this position more times than I have, so I'll yield to Mr. Richmond with respect to the language on the face of the ballot.
Commissioner, the language that appears on the face of the ballot is set forth in the state law. The commissioners, with all due respect, do not yet have the authority from the legislature to vary their determinations. We have proposed recommendations in the legislation to grant greater flexibility to make the ballot more user-friendly, including such a direction, and that hasn't appeared yet.
We don't even have discretion in terms of the size of the typeface?
We do have that.
Well,
We've made
large
changes.
enough. How about some bold?
The problem is again, you have limited real estate, Mr. Selig, on the back of the ballot to get all the questions in. And we have 3 statewide questions. We also
He's
not.
asking about the front of the ballot, that would
Just about
tell
the
the
front of the
voter
It-
that to turn the ballot over to look at the proposals.
Right.
Adding language that's not in the statute, you do not have the authority to say turn over the ballot.
What about bolding it, as he requested, bolding that language?
The instructions, I believe, now are on a separate sheet. That would be contained on the instruction sheet.
Which we can do.
We can't, yeah, but that's a separate sheet. It's not on the ballot itself. We decided to put the instructions on a separate sheet to give us more space on the ballot to expand the size of the type.
On the privacy folders.
No, that's the instructions. When we're doing the proposals like we did last time, we had a separate sheet of paper next to the ballot so that the poll workers would know to take the instructions, take the ballot, to inform the voter that the proposals were.
Which is permitted by law, Commissioner, that instructions could be a separate sheet that's to be given when we give them the ballot.
Understood.
So I guess, yes, that, we do have discretion to make that bolder and larger type, and that would give us, I guess, more real estate, because again, we would be following the same format, that if it's only a 3-language ballot, they're only getting the instructions in the 3 languages, it may make, that's something we have to look at in terms of.
Don't we need 5 languages?
In
Only in Queens.
In some
Queens.
places.
Right.
But in
Yes.
Queens, what we've done, Commissioners, the Commissioners voted to provide a 3-language ballot, so that although an ED may be required to provide Chinese, Korean, and Asian Indian language assistance, it'll be English, Spanish, and one of those 3, they'll rotate the ballots, and then it would mean with separate instructions, if we have it worthwhile, at least in Queens, put all the instructions on one sheet.
I think Queens is worthwhile.
That's a practical consideration, about the poll workers.
Please recognize it all.
What,
And just to be one bit of clarification, that was part of the whole 6-point font argument that got quite a bit of attention last
Yes,
year.
yes.
And as we examined it, there are 79, as it presently stands, election districts in Queens that require all 5 languages. And there are some lesser number, I don't have that number off the top of my head, that may require 4, and then so on down the line. In any event, post-general election 2013, there was, in the early part of 2014, a commissioners committee on ballot layout. And I believe, if memory serves me, Commissioner Arajo, Commissioner Michelle, I believe it was also Commissioner Guastella, and Commissioner Castorina served on that ballot layout committee, and their collective recommendation to the full Board of Commissioners at the time was to limit the maximum number of languages per ballot to 3. And then have, in the areas where required, in the majority of the city, you will have no more than 3. In Brooklyn and Manhattan, you have a maximum of 3, Bronx and Staten Island, a maximum of 2, and then these disparate areas in Queens that require more languages. But in any event, there will be no more than 3 languages on any ballot. And in the poll sites that in Queens that require 5 languages, they will have an English, Spanish, Chinese, an English, Spanish, Korean, and an English, Spanish, Bengali ballot to cover the 5 languages. And then when a voter comes in and asks for a language preference, if they do, then they'll be given that appropriate ballot. And if not, the ballots will be rotated to ensure that we don't run out of any one ballot stop.
The reason we limited it to 3 is for font size. If you put all 5 on one ballot, the font got, as we say, font was too damn small.
0.6 microscopic.
And so we had people who had trouble reading the ballot, so that this was the rationale for trying to have 3 separate ones.
And I gotta say, just, I got a little tired of talking about the 6-point font last November, so I again want to publicly thank the commissioners for taking that remedial action. Mr. Sadi?
Yeah, there are a couple things that I wanted to add to the discussion, and especially since now it's gotten to the font size. One of the things that does affect the size of the font on the ballot is the candidate's name in and of itself. And regardless of the amount of languages that are on the ballot, a candidate's entire last name needs to be printed on the ballot no matter what it is. There is some levity if the candidate has a long first name and a short last name to shorten the name. But just so you know, our current Attorney General is going to appear on the ballot this year, who is a person, and he has a very long last name. So that may very well affect the size of the font and may be less desirable.
Is he a big name politician? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's just the reality that we face. I did want to bring that up, and I know that bolding, Commissioner Flateau, you just brought up, and we have had plenty of conversations with a great amount of groups about ballot design. One of the things that comes up frequently is bolding. One of the concerns that's been brought to us in the past from Asian American groups is that the bolding, when you bold characters, like Chinese and Korean type characters, I don't know how often it happens in Bengali, they sort of lose their meaning. And I don't know how I can explain it better than they can, but they've expressed concern about bolding because, of course, if we bolded the English, we'd have to bold the Chinese, Korean, or Bengali in the same manner. And there have been concerns that bolding makes it worse in some respects for those types of languages. So that's something else that has to be balanced as it comes to that. And as far as the ballot for this general election is concerned, I did think of one additional thing that, Stephen, maybe you can lend some credence to, is that there is a lawsuit at the state level for I believe that they were filed by the Republican and conservative controller and attorney general candidates who are required by law to merge their independent body into one of their designating parties, either the Republican or Conservative Party. The law allows candidates for governor and lieutenant governor, state senate, and state assembly to have as many designating and independent lines as they file, but other candidates on that statewide level have to merge. So the Republican and conservative candidates for controller and attorney general have filed a lawsuit, and I believe an official in another county joined in on that lawsuit. That's being heard in Albany. Stephen, I think you can handle it from here.
Commissioners, a suit has been filed, Mr. Sadi identified the parties against the state board, alleging that it's an unconstitutional denial of their rights, that the governor, the state senator, and state assembly candidates are treated differently than the candidates for attorney general and controller. And in this case, district attorney for Greene County. And so that the proceeding was supposed to have papers due back yesterday. I haven't seen the papers yet in terms of the reply papers on behalf of the state. And that's sending forth a hearing. But it's, again, alleging that the current language of the statute results as applied as an unconstitutional denial of equal protection. The two cases that have been heard on that go both ways. In the Eastern District, Judge Gleason found in one case it was a denial of equal protection as related to a U.S. Senate candidate, but it was too late to effect the change. And then following year, with respect to a Nassau County legislature, another judge in the Eastern District found it was not unconstitutional. Neither case went to the Second Circuit. This is being commenced in state Supreme Court, but they are specifically pleading the denial of equal protection as applied.
Just want to make a note, especially for the new commissioners, that with respect to ballot layout, that a delegation of the commissioners, along with the executive staff, did go up to Albany not too long ago, and we did vocalize some of our concerns to the legislature, select members of the legislature, in fact. Your predecessor, Commissioner Dent, was one of the members of the delegation, including Commissioner Shimon and Commissioner Guastella, myself, and some members of the executive staff. So we've taken a proactive approach and measures to try to effectuate that kind of change that we can effectuate here at home, so to speak.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on his item, is that, are we making sure that all our poll workers are trained, whether they're translators or desk clerks or these inspectors, in telling people that there are things on both sides of the ballot? What ranks is it? Because very often people don't realize it. I mean, go on and say, the inspector's supposed to, but if it's not emphasized, they're not going to do it.
I myself could not speak to, yeah.
With respect to the training on whether or not there are propositions on the back of the ballot, I would certainly have to get back to you from that. I don't believe that we have anybody here from the election day operations staff. That's not something that, quite frankly, has come up in internal meetings, but certainly I'll address it with them and find out, A, what they're doing, and then B, what are our legal requirements and what are our legal parameters in addition to the requirements as well. So we'll take a look.
Don't we also put up posters at poll sites informing of the propositions?
Yeah.
And we also put publications in the newspaper as well?
Yes, sir.
Well, one of the things that came up in response, and it turned out to be, I think, a good idea, and if I'm not correct, I'm sure Mr. Rand will stand up and correct me, but when we had the problem with the 6-point font last year, we produced a large poster reproduction of the ballot. And that was both the face of the ballot and the reverse side for any propositions. And the poll worker staff was directed to hang that up in a prominent location in the poll site to make sure that the folks that didn't have an opportunity to review it ahead of time, whether it be on the computer at home or elsewhere, would have a convenient place within the vagaries of each poll site to go and outside the line, if you will, of waiting for the ballot, to have a spot to go look at it and see what's there and start to formulate an opinion. So we've taken steps to try to ameliorate the concerns of the voters. Some of them have been successful, some of them are still a work in progress. So, this, as I said, got quite a bit of attention last election cycle, last general election cycle in 2013. And, you know, I had the added advantage of being on the job less than 2 months when all this conversation was going on, so it was great.
Good. If I could make one other observation. Two of those proposals, in my personal opinion, are very important public policy initiatives. The Proposition 1 is going to change the very nature of congressional and state legislative redistricting. That's what Proposition 1 is about. And as an agency that is responsible for voter education, I think it's important that we work with our sister agencies, other entities out there, could be the good government groups, whomever, to make sure that the general public is aware that that's an important issue. They need to make a decision about changing the redistricting process in the state. And I believe Proposition 3 is a $2 billion bond act to provide technology in our classrooms. And I think that's another important issue. So if we could think about some creative ways to make sure that there's voter education and flagging the voter, that you get the vote yes or no on these key questions on the other side of the ballot. I think our organization, the Board of Elections, would be given great acknowledgement for that work.
Well, one of the things that we do presently is the old Voter Assistance Commission was reconstituted as the Voter Assistance Advisory Commission, which is now a subdivision of the Campaign Finance Board. The funding for voter education on that level has been diverted to that entity. As a acknowledgement of the Board of Elections' role in that process, I, as the executive director, am a de facto member of the board of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. So when there are meetings, and they're at least quarterly, sometimes more often, I attend the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee meetings, and you know, we have conversations about ways that all of that can be done. The reason that at least the reasoning that was given, one of the reasons that was given, is for doing it that way, is to avoid the appearance of the Board of Elections advocating either for a proposition or for a particular candidate. So the VAC, the VAAC, prepares the information and they disseminate information about voters, who's on the ballot. We also actually, Ms. Sandow worked very closely previously with, who's on the ballot?
Esther Fuchs.
Yeah, Esther Fuchs and who's on the ballot.org, which we provide whatever information we can to those groups to let people know who's on the ballot. And we leave it to others to compile the bios and the resumes and those kinds of things of folks that might be running to help the voters get more familiar with not only those running for office, but also the ballot propositions, and everything that ends up on a ballot has some type of a political component to it. So the theory has been, at least in the past, that those of us that are charged with the responsibility of counting the votes should stand clear of any of those otherwise political conversations.
Anything to add?
I don't accept, I expect to have a layout for you next Tuesday.
You didn't want to say that you agree with me? Because that's usually the way you end
No,
your
that's the
sentence.
standard.
Which is why I'm so happy that you're on staff.
Consider that the standard from here on.
Okay.
Thank
Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. We will see you next week, same time. Same place.
Yep. Me.
Thank you.